Good day, everyone. I'm really grateful and honored to be given this chance to share my thoughts on some misconceptions on feminism and our stand against discrimination. And hopefully, in the process, I will also be able to give some practical, simple, and creative ways on how to address those misconceptions. So, I entitled my presentation, A Renewed Vision of Feminism Transforming the Known World, but Towards What and How. I lifted this tagline, Transforming the Known World, from an article I found in the Oxford Handbook of Feminist Theory published in February 2016. What particularly struck me was that the book on feminism was placed under the subjects political science, comparative politics, and political theory. And in my mind, I think feminism has indeed gone a long way from being a multifaceted and interdisciplinary field spanning the humanities, social sciences, and the natural sciences that calls for the inclusion of those who are marginalized in a faulty social system. So in this presentation, I argue that feminism has instead become a postmodern ideology that promotes identity politics. As what the American academic and forerunner of liberal feminism, Camille Paglia, said, feminism now is rooted in a shallow understanding of our history, is devoid of biology and natural laws, and is denying the transcendence. It has instead caused division and polarization, the irony of ironies, that creates a culture of distrust where people attack each other instead of work together. Philosophers and the great thinkers of our time have always searched for the truth. And this is the reason we allow freedom of thought and speech. No one can deny how the feminism movement has opened a world of possibilities and opportunities for a lot of people. But one of its common criticisms is that it doesn't have a cohesive vision for the future. So I propose in this presentation that we need to revisit the whole story of our humanity and engage that with the recent and current history so we can have a clearer picture of where we want to be heading and how we will go there. So let me begin by identifying or defining identity politics. Identity politics is when people of a particular race, ethnicity, gender, or religion form alliances and organize politically to defend their group's interests. It is not a bad thing per se, according to Jonathan Haidt, an American social psychologist who co-authored the book The Coddling of the American Mind. He said that politics can be based on any distinction or group interest, but the big question is, how are they organizing? And what is the overarching framework? According to Haidt, there are two versions of identity politics in the American history. One is how the civil rights leaders do it, like Martin Luther King Jr., where he drew a larger circle around the group and then he emphasized what they have in common. And then he said, some of our brothers and sisters are being denied equal access, equal opportunity, or equal dignity. And then the other way you do it is what we call the common enemy identity politics. That is, if we are to unite, we unite against them. They're the bad people. They're the cause of the problems. And clearly, that is dangerous. Mark Lilia, a liberal historian, said this about identity politics. It's crucial that we develop a message that focuses on what we share, not on our identities and all, but what we share about certain principles in this country and our society. So, what are these shared principles? Biology and natural laws. If we look at the order of the majority of the species in this planet and study the civilizations of the past, it always points to the polarity of two sexes. It does not mean that one is stronger than the other. The two are totally different yet complementary to one another. We do not deny the presence of nuances or deviances, like, for example, this sculpture located below this slide, which shows hermaphroditism, or the beautiful boy, and pederasty, this apprenticeship between an older Greek man and a younger Greek man, which involves sexual relations. And all these homosexual and pedophilic relationships as evidenced by sculptures and wall paintings found in historical sites. But history shows us that strong civilizations were characterized by the clear identification of roles between men and women. Again, this is not to deny that there are deviants to that stratification, but it was that sense of structure that allowed us to be humans to one another. Another shared principle is harmony. If I were to define the Filipino social psyche, it would be harmony. Harmony on all levels. The father of Filipino social psychology, Virgilio Enriquez, calls this pakikipagkapwa. And I love this concept of kapwa, wherein he said that kapwa is an extension of oneself and not a separate entity as other cultures perceive the other. So whenever we do or decide on something, it should not only be good for ourselves or the individual, but also the good of our families and our communities. Another shared principle is the Judeo-Christian worldview. Whether you believe in God or not, our society is founded on a set of principles based on a worldview that we are all created in the image of God. This is where the claim for human rights and dignity come from, that we are more than the accumulation of our experiences, achievements, and material possessions. This is where the argument on historical materialism, where Marxism and radical feminism takes its roots from, fail to address. Because the utopia of equal economic and power distribution will never satisfy us. Humans are not created for that. We are not just bodies, we are embodied spirits. There's a reason, you listen to music or appreciate a beautiful painting because we desire for something beyond ourselves, the transcendent that we call it. We do not deny that the Judeo-Christian worldview has been used as a tool to oppress countless people for many centuries, but that is because we do not know the whole story. The story began with chaos. Then God brought order to that chaos by creating an abundant garden and the creatures that inhabited that garden. Then He created humans. He created two kinds of them, male and female, and together they both embody God in His garden. God blessed them and told them to rule over as God's partners and representatives. The plan was good, but that intimacy between God and humans was violated when the humans chose to do things their own way. Choice. No, I think this is another shared principle that our current form of politics or social structure denies our humanity. God was never a totalitarian. God did not insist his own way. God allowed people choice. And life outside of the garden, that's what we chose, is unpredictable and uncontrollable. It is confusing and difficult. So I think we do not need those feel-good philosophy to brave through the storms of life, that you are okay as you are. No, what we need is wisdom. And these ancient stories teach us to live with wisdom, but with realistic expectations. And this, I think, is the major caveat, especially here in our country. Countless people say they believe in God, but belief is not just simply professing or saying it. Our belief is proven true by our actions. And if we look at our society now, we see this integrated human beings whose thoughts, words, and actions are contradicting each other. And dangerously enough, this is the state wherein most of us form our ideologies or a system of ideas and ideals that influence our economic, political thoughts and policies. In his book, Maps of Meaning, Canadian clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson, who grew up in the midst of the Cold War, agonized at how humankind is willing to sacrifice everything to defend their various identities. So they killed their own citizens, other human beings, as what the totalitarian regimes did. So he cautions us to be most wary of ideology, no matter who is peddling it or to what end. He said that ideologies are simple ideas disguised as science or philosophy that purport to explain the complexity of the world and offer remedies that will perfect it. Ideologues are people who pretend they know how to make the world a better place before they've taken care of their own chaos within. This warrior identity and their ideology gives them the cover over that internal chaos. And ideologies are substitutes for true knowledge. And ideologues are always dangerous when they come to power because a simple minded, I know it all approach is no match for the complexity of human existence. Furthermore, when the social contraptions of these ideologues fail to fly, they blame not themselves, but all those who see through the simplifications. Another Canadian professor, Louis Furrer, in his book Ideology and the Ideologists, observed that ideologies retool the very religious stories they purport to have supplanted. For example, communism borrowed from the story of the children of Israel in Egypt with an enslaved class, rich persecutors. So you have the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. And then you have a leader like Lenin who goes abroad and lives among the enslavers and then leads the enslaved to the promised land. What the ideologists did was that they just eliminated the narrative and psychological richness of the religious texts. So two related things that this postmodern ideology promote. Number one, you use your identity as an excuse. Instead of taking responsibility in our own little ways for the injustices we're inflicting on one another. Whether we are conscious of it or not, we are inflicting injustice to other people as well. We are not just the ones who are experiencing injustice. And another, relatedly, is that in this form of ideology, everyone is a victim. We are instead looking for someone to blame. So, is this how we want feminism to transform the known world? Diana E. Anderson, the author of Damaged Goods, said that these differences in language, values, and philosophical orientation are non trivial, but they can also be misleading because neither feminism nor Christianity are totally or even mostly political movements. In their own ways, both are orientations towards the world that provide people with guidance on how to be humans and how to treat other humans. We have focused so much on sexual purity or sexual liberty instead of having a healthy relationship with the transcendence, with ourselves and others, instead of teaching ourselves on how to care for the poor or to love one neighbors. We have focused so much on sexual revolution. And I love when Anderson argued that sexuality is not the center of a person's life, faith, or health. In the same manner, the story about The Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, a leading, if not the most popular story in feminism, it's not about whether the girls will marry or not, but whether they will become better human beings. So let me end with a more contemporary story. I have watched a lot of stories featuring a strong female lead, and Queen's Gambit is outstanding for several reasons. Beth Harmon, the lead character, was an orphan, a female orphan. And it was Mr. Scheibel, the orphanage janitor, a male of lowly position, that allowed her to discover her genius and thus unknowingly acted as a father to her. But my most favorite part in the series was this. There, on her most important competition yet, Beth Harmon received a phone call from the men whom she competed against in the past and some with whom she even had romantic and sexual relations with. That I think is that moment is pivotal in the series because suddenly it's not just about a woman playing chess. It was about the Americans winning the world championship against the Soviets. So the circle was enlarged. But what I love most was how the series portrayed all the characters as humans, including the Soviets, who are subjected to strict regiments if they are part of the chess team. Beth Harmon in the series is as human as she can get. She's gorgeous and all her dresses are just classic. She's sexual, she's driven, she's needy, she's lonely, depressed, addicted to alcohol and tranquilizers. And she had to do unlawful things for money because she did not have them back then. But she went past that. She had to battle her inner demons first. She decided that on her greatest battle yet, she will stop drinking alcohol and stop taking tranquilizers. And yeah, she triumphed. She's triumphed against herself, against her past, and against the Soviets. And this became not only her victory, but the victory of her country, of all genders, especially those that are not well represented in chess, of orphaned and abandoned children, of those who are battling addiction and depression and loneliness. And I think that is our story. We all have chaos within, and everything around us is chaos. So, if I will give my renewed vision of feminism, I hope this feminism is big enough for our story. And I think we have been making progress. And it's my hope that our brand of feminism will create more communities of trust and cooperation where differences of views are heard, expressed, and resolved with respect. We need to make that circle bigger so that more and more people, regardless of their identities, can be included. So that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.